taught her well here in the program. Anyhow, I'm so glad that all of you are here, and I'm Dennis Slattery, and I have the honor of chairing Andrea's dissertation. And I want to acknowledge Paul Zolbrod, Paul right up front next to Andrea, who was the internal reader, and then a good friend of mine, a sociologist at the University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio, was the external reader, Roger Barnes. And he couldn't be here, so we have a question from him that we'll abuse Andrea with in a little while. For some of you who haven't attended a dissertation defense, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to reclaim the 10 minutes that we lost and started a little late. So,
thank you.
I want to make some remarks about Andrea and her work, and then Andrea will present for 25, 30 minutes, and then the committee, beginning with Roger Barnes, and then Dr. Zolbrod and I will pose some questions to Andrea, and then we'd like to open it up to you. And I do my best to try to keep these at 1 hour, so around 20 to 7 we'll be wrapping things up. I don't have the courage or the inclination to ad-lib these introductions, so I've written something out, and I hope you'll bear with me. At some point in the inception and process of dissertation construction, maybe we could tamp that down, maybe close the door.
Yes.
Thanks, Maggie. The student has to make some crucial decisions. One of them is this to be a theoretical, a social science, or a production style dissertation? And that's a big decision, because it projects the structure of the way the material is going to be dealt with. Often the latter, a production style dissertation, has as its intention to bring something into the world along the lines of a praxis, of a doing, or of a making. Production dissertations often turn into some action in the world and are often linked to something the person has already a certain expertise in, if not an enjoyment and a calling doing. Such is the case with Andrea's work. I believe she came in the door years ago with this topic in mind, and I remember talking to you about it. As she has continued to enrich her own work in the world, she has also crafted a significant work and a statement on dying into death. I think, and I know Paul would agree with me, that she has exquisitely tracked the progression from life to dying to death without separating one from the other. Death Beyond Denial, thus, has grown into both a critique of the rituals surrounding death, which of course mirror how death is received, defended against, ignored, and made marginal, rather than central to one's life culturally. By creating a poetic rendering of the death and afterlife of one young woman, Andrea has sought to capture the complexities of life leading to death with the in-between act of dying. In the process, she has come into her own as a writer and as a scholar. A birthing of sorts into her own creative powers as well. Let us then welcome and listen to one who has been at the bedside with both the dying and their families, a space that few of us would choose to pursue. But Andrea has taken many journeys with the dying in the process. Won't you please welcome Andrea?
First of all, I'd like to personally thank you all for coming from all over, spending your time, your energy to be here for this very, very sacred day for me. Through the ancient art of story reading, I'd like to weave a tapestry of imaginal tales and persuasive annotations that I hope will inspire and invoke the mythic imagination upon one's inquiry into death. The objective of this reading is to invoke a mythical imagination, an archetypal premise for our death images, with the express purpose of reconnecting these symbols to our experiences in death, dying, and beyond. Sit back, take a breath. I invite you to close your eyes and allow me to take you on a little journey. My name is Ellie, known to some as Elnaz, Ellie Bella, Ellie Belly. To others, nevertheless, I like to be called Ellie. I'm an 11-year-old little girl. My teachers know me as very mature, bright, witty, and mystical girl. Some have called me precocious. My Madar, mother, sees me as a very old soul, mostly because I have been wise beyond my years. I'm Iranian by heritage, but I was born in the realm of the United States. Before I tell you what it is like where I am now, let me tell you about dying. After being sick for almost 2 years, this state of dying is filled with confusion, fog, pain, and much uncertainty. During this time, my senses seemed to stop working. I asked for my elephant, angel cards, and a picture of Sai Baba. I don't know why, but they seemed to comfort me. In my dreams, I remember things Sai Baba said that comfort me now in this dream world. I hear Sai Baba say, feel that we are born in the dawn of every day, that you nestle in the lap of death when your eyes close to sleep. Know that waking from sleep is but birth, and going into sleep is death. So I guess we die every time we lay our heads down to sleep. I wonder if we are so afraid of death because we don't believe we're going to wake up. How do we know we're not going to wake up? Somewhere else, someone else, or somewhere even cooler. I hear everyone fussing over me. I see my Madar kissing my hand over and over and telling me, Naju, Jani Mani, which means you are my heart, you are my life. I don't know how I got to this place I lie before you. I will send you letters of love when I can from this place that feels so strange. Look for my letters in your heart pocket. Madar, I will take you with me. Please keep me close to your heart. I am both so scared and so curious in this moment I don't understand. I love you. As I lie dying, Madar, I can barely recognize myself. I try and reach for you through the mist to tell you I hear you weeping, but your tears only deepen my struggle. I can't reach your pain, dearest Madar. I don't recognize myself. I feel like I'm in a dream. No, it's a nightmare. I have no words, no breath, no anything. I seem to be connected by a silky thread between one world and another, kind of like being hit by lightning, yet also like being swept away into the beautiful clouds all at the same time. Can you hear me, Madar? No one hears me. Is this real or a dream? It's so weird being between my body and this other strange place. Now as my body is dying, all my thoughts are slipping away. I don't feel sad anymore. Oh, how free it feels. My dying body is drifting behind me, and I feel like I'm slowly floating away towards a silvery cloud. I can see you lying over my body, yet how can I be looking down at you from here? Where is here? It feels like I am having all the dreams I ever had in a single moment, and I am part of each dream all at once. Wow, can it be? Elephants with shiny wings are flying up in the white clouds. There are hundreds of these clouds around me. I feel like I'm flying. The clouds are turning into rainbows right in front of my eyes. I'm watching the elephants turn such beautiful colors as purple and pink and blue and the deepest green. It makes me want to giggle and just touch them. As I float closer, I see an elephant with multiple heads and trunks. She takes my breath away. God must be inside of her. I'm so close now that I can touch her, but I don't dare. I feel such peace and comfort being near her. I wait for her to speak. Funny, why would I wait for her to speak? I know elephants don't speak. Then I hear, "Welcome, my precious child. Please do not be afraid. My name is Nazijan, which means grace in the breath of the soul. I am an ancient elephant goddess of love and protection. I am your spiritual guide and have been by your side for many life moons. Once upon a time, when the people of the lands lived side by side with the gods and goddesses, I needed to provide a path for our souls to heal. Our souls wandered for eternity in dingy darkness. The only way out for these souls was for me to reach down below, beyond vision, into the underworld of our being with all my trunks and draw up all the waters to spray into the clouds. This created the beautiful rainbow of cool water that washes over the world. The rainbow is the cloud opening where the dead and dying begin their healing journey within my waters. Our journey begins where we once knew about the lineage to our peace, where we knew our soul's dance. The ancients have known and taught us for eternity. We just have forgotten how to open our eyes, our minds, and especially our hearts. Oh my, Madar, I'm on the path of the elephants. Nazijan tells me that unless we tell our stories of suffering, we become like the living dead. I know, Madar, your hopes and dreams died within me. It is my body that died, not my soul. It is not distance that separates us, it's the mind and the heart. I pray that these letters I will place in your heart pocket will help you understand and find peace. My journey home begins with leaving and following the path of the elephants. Please, please forgive me for leaving. As I lay dying, Madar, there is still so much to learn. I'm starting to really understand how much life is truly about death and death is about life. I hope you are getting my letters in your heart pocket. Can you feel me? I want you to know that I really love being out of my body. It's hard to explain, Madar, but now I feel free. We seem to be flying high, and I can't imagine what's behind these elephant clouds. Nazijan told me we are going to the land of the elephants, and I can hardly wait. Elnaz, we will be there soon enough, precious one. It is time to nestle down close between my heads and hold on to my wings tightly as we quickly begin to descend from these clouds into the primordial milky ocean from where I once was born. These divine waters can be difficult to cross as they churn with gods and goddesses alike. We're moving pretty fast now. I'm holding on tight. Elnaz, for many moon cycles, I lived underneath these waters as the god of thunder and protection of the cosmos. I have brought many souls to roam with the elephants in these waters. When these souls have evolved to their higher self after spending much sacred time in the medicine circles within the lands of the elephants, then they are ready to leave the underworld and merge with the spirits above through the rainbow clouds. At this point, I am beckoned to come forward and reach down with all my trunks into the underworld, sucking up its water and the spirits that are ready to evolve into the higher state of being. I then spray this fertile essence into the clouds, manifesting a cool rain, thus linking the waters of the sky with those of the underworld, forever connecting life and death, birth and rebirth, the gods, the elephants, and the mortals. Some of these spirits are birthed as the elephant angel stars that watch over the living every night when they twinkle their starry eyes. Other souls return for another evolution on earth. Elnaz, these lands have great powers in restoring truth, peace, and liberation back to the human understanding in life and death. The farther the human soul wanders from these lands, the more distance they are from enlightenment. The land of the elephants is also where one is taught to look at self, to comfort the madness of the unconscious, the forgotten wisdom of nature, the darkness within, and to challenge themselves to realize their potential by expressing the incredible possibilities which they embody. Madar, yay! This is the best ever. Here we go. We are moving close to the rainbow elephant clouds. They begin to huddle around and circle us. Their ears are flapping just like wings. The elephants begin to chant. I don't quite understand the words or even what language this is, but the music sounds similar to being in a Native American powwow. The drumming is getting louder and louder. Nazijan is dancing now. She seems to be in a trance. I'm feeling a bit woozy. I feel like I'm suspended between space. And then, all of a sudden, everything turns dark. Nothing looks the same as I last remember. Wow, we're floating on a river without a boat. The water appears to be a bit dark and muddy. I see many things floating in the water, very strange things like bones and ropes and pieces of fabrics, even skulls. Ooh. Where are we going, Nazijan? Elnaz, we are on our way down the river, through these waters of limbo, deeper into the depths of the elephant's greatest mysteries. These waters we float upon hold the souls that are lost but not yet found. They suffer the ill fate of forever being in the land of in-betweenness, never to find the path into enlightenment. They endure the fate of sorrow without torment, as they were unable to live beyond their fears, anger, and resentments. They will do anything to free themselves from this continual circle of suffering. I have companioned many departed human souls across the waters for as long as time itself. I have met humanity in its moments of greatest transitions and vulnerabilities. I have encountered heroes and heroines, demigods and renegades. I've transported the young and the elders. I've seen the rise and fall of the greatest and wonderful civilization like the Egyptians and the Greco-Roman worlds, the flourishing of India, China, and Arabia, and the native cultures like Aztecs and Incas. I've witnessed the growth, the decline, and reflourishing of many civilizations on Earth. The circle of life continues. I encourage you to consider that there is more here than meets the eyes in the netherworlds of the elephants. The waters are getting choppy now, Madar, and the lost souls in the waters are reaching up, trying to cling to Nazijan's ears. Some of their arms are really gnarly and gross. Their moaning is very ominous. I wish they could come with us. I can't bear this moaning, especially knowing they're going to suffer forever. Is there any hope? We quickly arrive at what looks like a very old and rotting iron gate that leads through a dark and narrow cave. I also see those things crawling. Nazi-Jean is moving very, very slowly now through these gates. There's an engraving on the gates that reads, "The breath of death." The breath of death? How can breath be part of death? Oh, Madar, am I really dead? Or could this still be a dream? Elnaz, we are entering the first of 3 wheels of the Elephant Delight Maker's sacred lands. The Delight Makers are the great elephant elders, the mystics, and the keeper of the unseen intelligence within the universe. Consider the idea that the driving intelligence within the universe, nature, or however you choose to express it, is the ultimate path to joy, meaning, enchantment, and love. All living beings are part of delight making. We are truly connected, but we sadly continue to forget. Nazi-Jean, how come we don't understand these things I am learning now about life when we are living? We seem to just pretend and hide from our truth. Nazi-Jean reaches down with her middle trunk for what appears to be a lovely little golden treasure chest. Inside, I find a green leaves in a shell with a feather, a blue gourd filled with a clear liquid, and rustic red candle holders with a lit candle, and a small leather pouch of yellow corn kernels. Elnaz, please take the candle out of the treasure chest so that we might find our way. I reach down and I pick the candle and remove it from its adorable little chest. Oh, and Nazi-Jean begins to glow beautifully. We continue to float down the dark cave, but we become visible because of my Nazi-Jean glowworm. Oh, Nazi-Jean, we left them behind. I want to go back and save them. Madar, I want to save them. I begin to weep uncontrollably. I blow the candle out and weep. Weep, my precious one. To churn with emotions and then to suppress the expression of your passion is ever so hurtful to your spiritual growth. Let those waters flow, my child. The gourd that you hold has been filled with teardrops. These teardrops are the manifestation of anguish, fears, and regrets that other souls have shed on their passageway in death. Let your weeping cleanse your spirit and intermingle with the collective suffering. Together, these tears will transmute this energy and aid the universe on its path to forgiveness, remembering, and honoring the darkness. Elnaz, without the darkness in life, there is no possibility of realizing the true light that is eternally lit in each soul. Your Madar will hear you, your tears falling in her heart pocket as you have continued to hear her tears. Oh, Madar, do you hear my tears? I want you to know that I feel as if my being has not ended but just begun. I know now whether I was a perfect child or endlessly tortured Ivan or wouldn't eat my lima beans. It doesn't matter. Whether or not I beat the cancer, it doesn't matter. Whether I died young, it also doesn't matter. Life goes on with no need for counting and reasoning whatsoever. I know that I will live on in your heart pocket, whether I am near or far, alive or dead. We will always be connected through eternal wisdom. One day, we may all forget, and it doesn't matter. My hope and intention in writing Ellie's Ride is to help those in end-of-life situations to create their own death imagery and mythology that may enrich not only the end-of-life experience, but also the ongoing experiences of their families and caregivers. The mythological elements within Ellie's narrative disclose her individual journey of courage, strength, wisdom, while also emphasizing our collective experience of death. Her testament demonstrates a belief in eternal life, spiritual immortality, and a connection between humans and animals as inspirited beings. Navigating a diversity of symbols aroused by death, this narrative reveals to us a collective human eruption of imaginative projection in response to the unknown as illustrated within the tale's mythic imagery. Read out loud to the dying, their families, and end-of-life caregivers, Ellie's stories encourage participations to enrich their imagination through connection of psyche and soul. The dying and their families can read these narratives as a means to employ imagination and mythos to establish deeper, more poignant remembering, to restore what was lost, to heal broken bonds, and to ultimately part and live on. Throughout the writing of this dissertation, I have reflected upon what I have learned about death and dying as a hospice social worker, an educator, a death doula, which is an end-of-life coach, ordained minister, and founder of the Heartway, which is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to conscious living and conscious dying. I have witnessed the dying, their families, and their caregivers struggle to understand the sublime mysteries of life through the unavoidable approach of death. Rather than arguing a rigid ideology of death, the monolith of our dominant medicalized approach to dying, I present resources and tools towards igniting conscious approaches to death informed by mythic imagination. Secondly, the collective language of human imagination that assists us to the seeing into other realms of possibility. Also an understanding of psyche's role in death and awareness of our primordial yet succumbed sense of death. Thus, this study penetrates the surface of death and uncovers its metaphors and discloses layers of truths and insights about death as relevant to us in life as they were to our ancestors in many cultures thousands of years ago. For thousands of years, cultural mythologies and world religions have attempted to help humanity to answer the big questions and that bring meaning to life and death. Yet, we refuse to face the answers, and as a result, the meaning eludes us. We still see the attempt to abolish death from our consciousness. Death has become hidden, unsayable, unfathomable, unimaginable, and untouchable, commanding awe, terror, and fascination. As with Ellie's rides, the arts, whether literature, poetry, film, or visual arts, make possible more expanded consciousness and more intimate understanding of what speaks to the central concerns of human existence: life and death, transitions and impermanence, uncertainty and meaning, and the many facets of a relationship with self, other, and the broader community of beings with which we share our existence. Death cannot be overcome, but it can be integrated more fully into our lives as it is both acknowledged and honored. Without the integration, how can we truly say we are fully alive if we deny death? How can we find avenues and pathways which will allow and encourage new myths of dying to be born? Humans can find new ways of comprehending death, and in doing so, enhance and broaden their understanding and appreciation of life itself, if they are prepared to transcend the bounds of emotionally, psychically limited, scientifically based realities. With a vision that looks with new courage beyond the currently prevalent fear-based denial into the abyss of the underworld of our being, a new living mythology can arise as a guide for the individual and the collective on the inevitable journey towards death. I argue that this approach, the conscious integration of myth, psyche, and soul at the end of life, offers new understanding, comfort, richness, and ultimately the path towards bliss and love. My hope and intention in producing Ellie's Ride, as well as the theoretical inquiry, are to exhume the spiritual dimension of death lost to our cultural conversation through the dominant narrative of fear and loss. in the hope of inspiring an understanding of death that allows for a spiritual awakening of the soul. Today, many who are dying have the tragic experience of dying alone, in fear, over-medicated, and often hidden away in an institutional closet. My most heartfelt desire is that this body of work may prevent that lonely, fear-laden ending for many approaching this threshold. Why am I so passionate about the concept of death beyond denial? Why do I feel that it is vitally important, even critical, that we explore new realms in the subject of death and dying? And is it even possible in our culture to make these changes? I am more convinced than ever, with each new client I companion through death, there is an increasing need for change. The insensitive medicalized approach to the end of life far too often denies essential psychological, spiritual, and emotional support, leaving the dying, their families, and even the traditional networks of support alienated, both from the medical establishment and from each other. The essential purpose of my work is to fill the void this cold scientific approach engenders, and to provide a warmer, safer, more humane, and compassionate environment for the dying and their loved ones. I stand in opposition to the denial of death in all of its many forms, seeking to integrate death psychology, mythology, mythopoesis into the dying process, and also to encourage the dying and their loved ones to see death with new eyes. Today, many who are dying have the tragic experience of doing so unconsciously. Abundant medications, literature, and support are available in an attempt to ease pain and suffering for the dying. Yet, little is available to inspire the dying and their families to employ suffering as a positive means to engage the psyche at the end of life. Does today's medicalization of death interfere with our natural death instinct? Is there a space in our technical, hierarchical, ego-bound lives to imagine death? I consider that there exists a vast, unencumbered space within we imagine death. Science attempts to rigorously measure, validate, define, and exploit the material universe, that which we know objectively through reproducible experiment and the perception of our senses. While important and often of great value, scientific approaches, frequently devoid of and dismissive of imagination, provide answers to only part of the spectrum of human experience. Through imagination, we can comprehend much more than what our senses are able to perceive. When we allow ourselves to experience images and feelings from a numinous and mysterious source, we may be initiated into something much larger than ourselves. Today, Western cultures honors rationalism over imagination, science over myth, and the mundane over the sacred. But I believe all are necessary for our well-being. The medical model of care at the end of life disregards imagination, mythology, and the sacred in its approach to death. The medicalized model of care is heavily skewed to a logical, financial, or scientific method of care. What happens when we neglect this mythic imagination, when we fail to integrate images, symbols, and archetypes as part of the transformational journey of those that are dying? Perhaps the dying are left to die less than whole, void of the complex, rich depth of psychic images and symbols that reveal to us about death. I advocate that we cultivate a conscious philosophy of death that includes a rapport within death, psyche, and soul in our lives. The Buddha offers a teaching on the development of loving kindness known as the Metta Sutta. His hope in this teaching was to instill a sincere wish for contentment in all beings. In conclusion, I leave you with my metta wishes for the dying. May the dying be met with noble, mindful, and loving support. May the dying be peaceful and at ease with pain, suffering, and death. May the dying have the right to choose treatment of care and the right to die. May the dying have the opportunity to bask in their dreams, imagination, and personal expression of death. May the dying, if they choose, be given the means to die outside of the myth of the medicalized death. May the dying inhabit their mind, body, and soul in a way that allows them to find freedom in their song, dance, and love. May the dying feel the freedom to express her or his truth. And I dedicate this presentation to those that are dying in this moment, those that have died, and those that are beyond. Thank you. Waited till the end to do that, please. I would like to say one thing really quickly. This is a 91-year-old client of mine holding my hand.
You want to take a minute?
I'm okay. It's just going to get worse.
Good. So this is the question from the external reader. I'd like to stand up and read it to you so that you can hear it. And then Andrea, I'm going to give it to you so you can refer to it if you'd like. Throughout the dissertation, you make a sustained critique of how medical technology and the medicalization of death remove us from encountering a deeper and more spiritual embrace of a good death. What kinds of structural, institutional realignments need to be taken in American society to move us towards realizing the type of death experience that we should have?
Thank you. I'd first like to argue that I don't think there's a good death or a bad death. That puts death into the duality of good or bad and automatically sets up for failing at death. What is a good death? In 26 years, I can't define that. And that's an important point that I also make in my dissertation about that. And I shared with you about not wanting to present an ideology of death, and that's exactly what that does. Now, having said that, as individuals, as communities, we might have an image for what death is and what feels right for us or what our hopes and dreams are, and that's my devotion to advocate for a right to die so that we can make those choices. Based on the institutions that need to change, because the medical model, and you heard some strong comments about that, I don't want you to feel at all that I am opposed to the medical model. It's very much necessary, and I tried to expose that. But it's only a small part of the picture that's being presented. So we need an expansive view of that. And I don't know how having such a financially based, pharmaceutical based medical system now that we can move past that too much, because it is financially driven and spirit has nothing to do with money. And there's always that conflict. So I think there has to be a large change within the medical system, the healthcare system. And I will say now, I don't know if this is the question you're going to ask Paul, but it's appropriate here about hospice, is hospice was brought in to meet that need, coming from England, the spiritual need. It was a hospice social worker till 1993 or 4 when my expression is they sold their soul to Medicare and the insurance companies. Everything they did to that moment shifted to a financially based system, and you fall under the realm of what Medicare says is required for care, which is exquisite. Medicare hospice is the best there is, and the other private insurances don't cover near as much. But it's still putting death in a box, and many of the needs of the dying just don't fit in there. So they have not met their mission. I'm not alone with that. Lucy Bregman did a lot of work on how hospice has failed their mission. They have the right heart and soul, and when I have a case, I always bring a hospice in with me to support me. Did that answer that?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Zolbrot to pose a question to Andrea.
Well, first of all, Deerheart, as an octogenarian, I'd like to express just some real gratitude to you for helping me face the inevitability of my own oncoming death. I'm not going to tomorrow or next day, but and I really feel gratitude to you because, in my participation in this whole process for you, you've really taught me how to celebrate what's left of my own life once I can accept the inevitability of the transition. And I just appreciate that. It's not a question, but I wanted to express that to you because this has been a very enriching experience for me. Now comes the medicine, my question. Why do you think hospice has not met the spiritual and psychological needs of the dying that you speak of so with such confidence?
As I started to share before, I think the key moment happened in the mid-90s when they converted to a Medicare-based paying system. And Medicare doesn't pay for spirit. But I'll share a story to add to what I said that I think was the crowning moment. When I was a hospice social worker and visited many clients, and then Medicare and JACO came in to start regulating. And when JACO came in and said, you have 45 minutes in this patient and you've got to see 8 or 9 in a day, I wasn't about to go to my patient, I call them clients, I don't think they're patients, go to my client and say, could you hurry up and die? So we became restricted, we became in a box, and we became limited. And there's no way of putting death in a box. There's no way of constricting it. So I think financially was the main reason. They don't have the time, even with working with lots of social workers and nurses. When I have a case, I bring in a hospice to work with me, to support me on medications, and they're so driven. And in that, a little anecdote that I think is important, I use the word over-medicated. My argument with that isn't medication. My argument is that they medicate for emotions, not so much pain. So if a family member is suffering because they're watching their loved one dying, instead of taking the time, because they don't have it, to have the discussion what dying is like. Dying is not painful. Cancer is painful. Broken bones are painful. But when the